G'day guys, Ben here from Solar and Sat, and the clients on this job have given us permission to absolutely go to town on the custom work, and I don't think they'll be disappointed. All right, let's touch on the specs before we jump inside and take a look. So we've got 400 amp hour of battery bank at 24 volt this time, which is equivalent to 800 at 12 volt. We've got a 5 kVA Victron multi-plus inverter, 1,450 watts of Shervy solar panels on the roof, as well as a DC-DC charger in there for charging off their alternator. Safe to say it'll make for a heck of a system. Let's go check it out. All right, as you can see under here, it's looking pretty flash. Now that was at the customer's request. They said they wanted LED lights in the whole shebang basically. So we've put these LED lights in here that they can control. There's their green color scheme they were going for. But we got them to supply us with their logo so we could etch it onto the engraving in here just to really finish it off and tie it all together. They've got a YouTube channel where they share their adventures on and whatnot. So we thought that'd be a nice little finishing touch for them. That was an idea of ours. And then you've got these two 200 amp hour Victron lithium batteries. But you've got to bear in mind that being that they're 24 volt, they're actually equivalent, each of them, to a 400 amp hour 12 volt lithium battery. So a very, very large battery bank right there. Obviously we've got the whole Lynx Victron BMS system here. So we've got the big bus bar for the power in off the batteries, and then the big distributor as well on the outputs that we use for fusing the multi-plus, all the solar controllers, all the loads, the big converter, all that sort of stuff. It just makes our cable management a lot easier and a lot better. And obviously gives us a way to join up these twin sets of 64mm cable to allow the customer to utilize the full 500 amps of discharge that this battery bank is capable of. We'll move over to the right and I'll show you some of the other parts we've got in here. All right, off to the right here, we've got the bulk of the Victron components where all the fancy and the cool stuff is. So if we're over here, we've got the 24 5 kVA multi-plus 2 inverter charger. Now this fella here, as I said, we've wired it up to surge the full 10,000. Now, obviously, first thing people will be thinking is, hey, there's only a 16 amp circuit in a Caravan. How are you going to utilize that much power? Now, we've obviously thought about that. We've run a much heavier cable up to what's now called the dedicated subboard, and it's got 3 16 amp circuits on it, which gives the customer heaps of usable capacity. They've actually got more power off grid than most Caravans have when they're on the grid. So definitely a lot of capacity there. They could run their aircon at the same time as they're making a coffee, or at the same time they're using the microwave or induction cooktop. So lots of capability with that unit there. Then we've got 3 solar controllers. So we've got the 100-50, the 7515 and the 100-20, all from Victron. Now the big fella there is obviously for that massive solar array we've put on the roof. So the flat mounted stuff, we've all run through that unit there. Obviously you can take twice as much now that it's wired up for 24 volt. Typically they're good for 700 watts. In this case, it's actually good for 1400 watts. Then we've got the 20 amp solar controller, and that takes care of the 330 watt panels at the front. Being there on a different angle, we wanted to make sure we separated that from the rest of the solar array. Then we've got the 15 amp solar controller, and that's actually wired up to an Anderson plug on the outside for a solar panel input. With their portable panel, we've also wired it in series to get 40 VOC, and that'll obviously allow it to charge a 24 volt battery bank. We then modified the input on their car to ensure that same solar panel could also charge their car's system if they so chose. Down here, we've got a very efficient Orion DC-DC converter. Now, obviously being a 24 volt system, most of the stuff in this Caravan runs on 12 volts, so you can't run it directly off the battery bank. So it's essential that you use a high efficiency DC-DC converter. So this fella here is rated for 70 amps at 12 volt, and the idea of that is it'll run fridge, lights, water pump, TVs, the blackjack at the front. Pretty much everything around the Caravan is going to have to run through this point at some point. So it's very important you go for a high efficiency version, which is what we've opted for here. Now you can see, to tidy it all up, we've done this acrylic panel on it. A couple of the reasons behind this, I guess, were one, the customer obviously asked for a pretty looking system, and this does a fantastic job of hiding all the wires. But it also does mean it's actually easier for the customer to like change a fuse, for example, if they have to, because being that we've got so many different loads and things hooked up to different spots around here, you can't really have a dedicated fuse area like we typically do in most of our 12 volt systems. You'll have some fusing over near the converter, obviously, from where the 12 volt loads are. You could run that back to a fuse block, but there's always going to be things going in and out in different spots. The idea is the customer can just back a couple of these screws out, that panel lifts straight off, it's very lightweight, it's made of acrylic, and actually gives them full access to their whole area here. And on the other side, we've braced it a bit more heavily so they can actually still store a bit of stuff on top of it, and that's why we've put none of the heat producing stuff on that side. They can sit some storage stuff over there and they're not losing their whole underbed area. Speaking of heat, we've actually installed 3 fans under here. So we've got a massive one at the front where we put a laser cut acrylic plate there to force all the air in. And then we've got a pair of fans in here which actually force the air out. So it's moving a massive amount of air under full load here, just for obviously when they are running this multi-plus at full send, they're in good sun. Obviously it might be 40 degrees out, they're running their aircon. There's no point, for example, if it's 24 degrees in here and your underbed's roasting hot, you want your underbed to be cool as well, so you're not laying on it and being uncomfortable. So I think it's come up a treat. Same as we always do on these high-end jobs, we've opted for the Servo GX Touch 70. I've given a rundown on this multiple times before, but obviously we use it for controlling all those temperature-triggered fans. Gives the customer a fantastic overview of what their system's up to. They turn the inverter on and off from here. It makes for a pretty tied-in, all-in-one unit. Obviously we've used it for water tank sensing. They're all empty now because obviously we had to have it empty to fit the water tank sensors, but gives them a lot more accurate monitoring there. Obviously we've got our system switch up here, and we've laser cut an acrylic panel here to hide any of the old holes, any of the old little mounts in behind there from the existing gear that was in here before we went and changed it all. Obviously got our new 240 volt stuff here with the separate circuits I mentioned earlier, and then there's the system switch there, which just lets them isolate their whole power system if they need to. Just a quick reminder that we are national distributors of all Victron Energy and Shervy solar products. So whether you be an end user or you want to buy wholesale for your own business, make sure you check out our website. That's one more awesome power system out of here this week. No matter what size system you need or what custom requirements you have in mind, make sure you give us a call at Solar and Sat and we can give you a hand.
Appreciate over that. The top and love the work.
Awesome, thank you very much. All right, now you got to get out there and enjoy it and use it, hey?
Yeah, can't wait.
That's it, but if you need a weld though.
Well, yeah, well, we... Not taking a welder then, thank you very much.
But it'll work.